Kids get excited over the snow?
Yeah, and then they were disappointed that it wasn't good sledding snow.
Yeah.
I guess it was too fluffy. I don't
It was real fluffy.
I wasn't real excited about it.
I didn't mind it fluffy because it made it easy to get rid of.
Yeah, no kidding. My dog's like
Yeah, my dog goes crazy in it.
late today?
What?
Late today? Allie said she'd be here. Jeff just said Lou said he'll be 10 minutes late. I don't know. I would assume Jeannie and Gita wouldn't miss a dueling. Maybe the parking lot. Audio.
Pardon me?
Audio.
Yeah.
No, I know, but when I watched it.
Oh, I said we're dialing it in to see if it doesn't squeal back at you and stuff.
Watched it.
Make sure.
Trying to verify the minutes and then it's like we all came here for nothing. Hey.
Hello.
Bill.
Okay, well, I'm going to get started.
That's fine.
I call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you call the attendance, please?
Yeah, Jeff Bard,
Here.
Gita Mueller,
Here.
Lou Gata, Robin Cleek here, Jason Tron,
Here.
Jeannie Engelkmeyer, Sonali Patil.
Okay, 4 board members present, 3 absent. With the board's concurrence, I'd like to switch the presentations with the public comment period.
Sure.
Any objections?
No.
Okay. We'll start out with a presentation on the Hawthorn Education Foundation Board of Directors by Dr. Jill Martin.
Everyone,
Evening.
board for the Education Foundation. So when I call your name, if you could come on up here and tell a little bit about you, and then you'll get. So our first member is Anshul Bindal. Anshul has lived in Vernon Hills for over 12 years, has a child at Townline and a child at Aspen School. Anshul has a background in financial management and planning for over 12 years, along with project management experience. He also serves as the board president of the Vernon Hills Indian Association, a nonprofit organization, and serves on the board of multiple homeowners associations. Anshul looks forward to partnering with various businesses and organizations to celebrate Hawthorn's diversity and to bring the community together. Please welcome Anshul.
We do have a certificate as an inaugural member.
Our next member is Jeremy Gong. Jeremy has two boys who attend Elementary South School. Jeremy has a background in financial analysis and accounting, which has allowed him to understand the underpinnings of corporations while also enhancing his analytical skills. His MBA from the University of Chicago Booth School of Business accentuated his value of education while broadening his knowledge of operations, corporate strategy, economics, and entrepreneurship. Jeremy believes that the foundation's success will hinge on selling its value to corporations to garner the support that it will need to be successful. Congratulations and welcome to Jeremy Gong. Jennifer Johnson. Jennifer has a son at Vernon Hills High School and a daughter at Middle School North. She is ready to roll up her sleeves and get dirty on behalf of the foundation. She's worked for nonprofit, public management, communications, and media, writing, and event planning. Currently the managing editor of Little Lake County, she has a handle on local Lake County programs and events. She was also the website administrator and assistant to the village manager for the Village of Long Grove. She looks forward to the advancement of Hawthorn's strategic goals. Welcome to Jennifer. Not to be confused, Jenny Christofferson, Jennifer Jenny. Jenny is the extremely busy mom of an infant boy and a 2-year-old daughter. While she does not live in Vernon Hills, she does work here. Jenny is the Vice President of Product Development and Marketing at ETA Hand to Mind, a supplemental hands-on education company. Here, she leads a team through ideation, planning, development, and implementation phases of product and go-to market plans, ensuring that solutions are aligned to the Common Core state standards and next-gen science standards and best practice pedagogy. Having been an educator herself and district coordinator, and now working with educational materials, Jenny is excited to leverage her over 18 years of educational experience to bring new advances to Hawthorn schools. Welcome, Jenny. Rebecca Snyder.
Thanks.
Rebecca has a daughter who attends dual language and loves Vernon Hills. She has been a professional fundraiser since 2003. Rebecca is the Chief Development Officer of Lake County Forest Preserves and the Executive Director of the Preservation Foundation of Lake County Forest Preserves. In this capacity, she is responsible for all aspects of raising private support from individuals, foundations, corporations, and government agencies, including board management, budget and program development, the annual fund, grant writing, capital campaigns, and major and planned giving. Please welcome Rebecca. Lauren Thiessen. Lauren's 1-year-old and 4-year-old are future Aspen students. Prior to having children and moving to Illinois, Lauren served as the executive director of the Republican Party of Orange County, California, where she specialized in planning and orchestrating fundraisers for candidates and elected officials. She also supported and put forth strategic plans for the Get Out and Vote effort for local, regional, and statewide campaigns and ballot initiatives. Prior to working in politics, Lauren worked directly for a fundraising company in Southern California. Here in Vernon Hills, Lauren volunteers for local organizations, and we are excited to have her on our foundation. And one more member, Karen Sagalis. Karen has 2 children in Aspen School. She has lived in Vernon Hills for 6 years and works in the Lake Forest school system, where she has firsthand experience of how an educational foundation can help support teachers. She has been the recipient of foundation grants and wants to listen to teachers, students, and staff to find out their needs and move the students of District 73 forward. Karen has served on many decision-making committees ranging from curriculum to professional development to special education and beyond. Welcome to Karen. So we are super excited about the foundation. We have a very diverse board from all aspects of the community, and it's going to be a great opportunity for us, and we look forward to our first official meeting in April.
Thank you.
We're very excited to have the Educational Foundation. It's been at least 10 years since we've had one in Hawthorn, and we're looking for great things from them. Okay, next up, we have a presentation from Aspen Elementary, fifth grade buddies.
Cards.
The kindergartners because they're really amazing and they're really cute and they're always really fun and they play games with you during like their lunch and I love helping them out because they're awesome.
What's your favorite memory with the kindergartners?
My favorite memory with the kindergartners is like when they try like scaring you. It's like really fun, and they're just really fun to like help.
What's your favorite memory with the... Why do you help the kindergartners?
I help the kindergartners because they're super fun, and then they're cute, and they're really nice to you, and they just make your day.
If you have any questions, help me with my phone. Very much.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Maria?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this is the Board Committee of the Whole. We have a public comment period. We do have 3 discussion items tonight. We'll have those, and then we'll also have a public comment period before the regular board meeting. It looks like we have a few more people than we normally have. Can you raise your hand if you're going to comment tonight, just so we get a sense? Okay. I ask that you come up and state your name and address for the record, and then limit your comments to 5 minutes per board policy. Thank you. Who wants to go first?
Nicole Bellini. I live at 1673 Sandwich Road, Hills. And I just came here tonight because I've spoken to you before about the dual language program, and I won't take long tonight, but I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of something that I think is really key, whether and the dual language program, and that's staffing. So I am actually an assistant principal in Woodland School District 50, and we have a dual language program, and that in 2014. Been rolling up every year, just like it did, and we are now in the 4th grade, and we are ready to go full steam ahead and go all the way to. And it kind of saddens me as a parent and also a former teacher in this district to know that the dual language program here at Hawthorn has been in existence for 6 years, and we haven't been able to get it past 5th grade. And I know one of your concerns sitting here discussion last board staffing, and I just wanted to make sure that you're aware that there is a program through the Illinois State Board of Education, and we use this program at Woodland, and we use it to get our teachers to Spain, and we find some wonderful, very highly qualified teachers. We're actually able to find a Spanish-speaking special education, but been able to get teachers that are endorsed in math and science, those areas that I know are of concern, to find qualified teachers. And they are also experienced, have at least 3 years of experience. And being an evaluator myself, I have been nothing but very happy and satisfied with the result of the teachers have come work in Spain. So I just wanted to make sure that knew that that was out there. That's an option, and it's one that Woodland has been using with a lot of success. And if you wanted to come over and see, call me up. So just wanted to make sure you knew that. That's it.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to comment?
Maria Menendez. I'm at, want my address? Okay, 305 Alexandria Drive. I'm not in education. I don't have any staffing suggestions, but I just wanted to speak up as a parent and also as a native Spanish speaker to say that I am delighted with the program. My son, for various reasons, I couldn't speak Spanish to him. So, but when I did try, eventually I was able to. He didn't want any part of it. I don't like Spanish, Mama. so no. And then, going into kindergarten and first grade, just, poof, he's blossomed. Now he speaks in Spanish. And I'm just, I treasure this program. It's effective. He's also doing well academically overall, so I don't feel like, there's any deficiency or anything that I had to give up for him to have this. And I also kind of feel like just now that he's picking up steam, 5th grade just feels like it's right around the corner. So if he could go to middle school and, of course, all of his classmates, the other children, I think it would be a big difference maker to how, they come out as more fluent speakers. Because 5th grade is going to come very quick, very soon. And I feel like he could just have that extra bit of Spanish for, the or whatever it is. I'm nervous. So I think it would make a difference. I really do. I kind of feel like it'll end too soon. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to comment at this time? Okay. First discussion item is enrollment projections and boundary implications.
Yes, the board had asked me to start evaluating what we anticipate might be coming up in the coming school year with some enrollments, and so I have provided you some notes previously. I have met with Dr. Martin and Mr. Frederickson, kind of reviewing most of these, or in fact, all these projections are based on Elementary South and Aspen. If there was a need, as you know, just to recap, last year we started the school year for Elementary South. The enrollment was jumping up and down, but we also knew we didn't have all the kids that had moved out, but we had jumped up into the 750s. We ended the previous year at 746. We started the school year at 752, so we had gained about 6 students over the summer. Small amount, but we roughly gained about 2 to 3% over the last couple years through the year. More students than we lose. So last year, or this year, we've gained 50 and we've lost 23. And so roughly comes out to be about a 3%. So we're trying to analyze what, if anything, should be done as we prepare for next year at South to alleviate if there's any unexpected growth like we've had the last couple years. And with that, we looked at several things. One is the 5th grade has 502 students district-wide. Most of our grade level is 450. It's a very large 5th grade. It's a bubble class. That 5th grade is leaving South. It has 146 students that will be going out. This year, off of our projections for kindergarten, will be just a little bit below the 450 mark. If it holds, if you recall, I gave you some information where at kindergarten enrollment, the number we get is about 80% of the total enrollment. That's happened for the last couple of years. If that happened this year, our enrollment would be about 430. Now, across all the kindergarten classrooms, that's not a significant number out of each class, but it's a little bit. But we anticipate that the large 5th grade will be going out, and a smaller kindergarten might be coming in. Still need 5 sections. So we do believe that initially South will lose approximately 25 students off of its total enrollment, dropping it back down around to the 750 range from where it's at right now. The nice thing about that 5th grade is it's 25 students in a classroom. If Elementary South were to lose 25 students sprinkled across all the grade levels, you don't get a classroom, you don't get any potential staffing adjustments, you don't really reduce the student-teacher ratios because there would be little. This is an entire class less than what we currently have. So that's a benefit. So it means that Elementary South gains a classroom for some of its displaced programs. So we anticipate it to drop by 25. We anticipate the growth to be about 23 through the school year off of patterns it's had. So it would be in the same enrollment number as it is right now at the end. And what we found is at the end of the year is pretty close to where we started at the beginning of the year, give or take a few students here or there. With that said, we added 2 portables last year. That gave us the capacity, additional capacity of like 50 students approximately. So that 775 range is within its capacity to operate. We don't like the number that large, but we also know we're working on some projects to hopefully alleviate that permanently. So with that, the best estimate is that South's going to lose an entire classroom and open up a classroom that will be able to be utilized for programs that are displaced. We anticipate we're going to gain approximately 23 students through the year, so we'll be at the same enrollment we currently are. If you were going to consider, last year we looked at adding portables or possibly moving a neighborhood. I've looked at several different neighborhoods and said, if you were going to move, what would you do? You have to be careful because if you move a neighborhood that's got a large population, you get about 50, and you reduce the enrollment at South, but depending on how the students are dispersed, you may not gain a classroom like you do with the 5th grade, but you transfer the problem or the issue to Aspen or North, but right now I've looked at Aspen, because you add those students back in, and then you would have to add in, you'd have to add in some more staffing, and then they would have programs on a card as well. So I looked for neighborhoods that are around 20 or 25. There are a couple that are in your notes that have some equal distribution of students. If you were to move that neighborhood or one of those neighborhoods, you could reduce Elementary South's enrollment approximately 20 or 25 students from this year to next year. You would have to add one staff member, I believe, at Aspen. You would not reduce any staff members at South, and you would reduce some of the enrollment in the classrooms by 1 or 2 students in each classroom, depending on what the enrollment are. And you have those projections for you. I still think it's a little early to make a final determination on that just yet. We're trying to make sure we have good, accurate kindergarten numbers. If we're getting more than we expected, we don't know. Like I said, the pattern's been 80. We have a plan B there. I think that it would be nice if after the spring break time, if we really thought there was a serious consideration, we really needed to adjust 20 students, we would want to contact folks and have a conversation with them and make sure they knew ahead of time. We waited last year very close to the start of school. Numbers jumped up and jumped down and jumped up again. You kind of have to wait to see the kids many times to make sure you got them. But right now, with the models that we have over the last couple of years, I'm pretty confident somewhere between a 2 to 3% growth through the year. But you're going to lose that same 2 to 3% in the bubble 5th grade class. So you're sitting about at the same spot. So the question is, do you disrupt or not with some existing situations? So I didn't know if there were any questions on that or further questions, more analysis you would want for me to bring back.
Well, I got a comment. I mean, you gain a classroom, but the real issues at that school are in the common areas, the hallways, and there's kids still leaving to go to another school for PE.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's the main concern. I mean, so even this bubble year going out, you have a classroom. Will students still need to walk outside and go to a different school for PE? And what's the uncomfortable, the discomfort really in those hallways and in the cafeteria? So, I mean, opening up a classroom, right now, our class sizes are where we want them in South. That's not the problem. So ironically, in all of our problems with solving space and solving and getting more classrooms, the problem it solves is the sheer number of people. So I don't care what a bubble is, if the kids still got to walk for 2 years now to a different school to go to PE, and the overcrowding in the common areas, that's the real issue. So I can't just go by the fact that, okay, this is a bubble year and opens up a classroom. That's not the problem at South. So, when we're thinking about really what makes a difference, that's not the case. And I mean, that's the stuff that needs to be brought up. I mean, I need to know, are there kids going to another school for PE for a second year?
Yeah.
What does the staff in the building think about, I don't know if it's a dangerous level, but it's certainly an uncomfortable level of people in the common areas. So
I can get that information.
that's the only information that matters. I mean, because we have enough classrooms right now. The class sizes are within reason. It's the overall number in the building.
Okay, before we continue with the discussion, for those that might not know, if you were here for the Aspen presentation or with the foundation and you don't want to stay for the meeting, you can leave, and we won't be offended.
This could be long.
Okay, are there any comments or questions
I mean, I would just say that I agree with Lou. I think that's definitely, I would love to hear from Jill, or if Nick wants to get back to us in terms of the conditions of the common area. But I also think it's a pretty serious thing to move kids that have been going to a school and switch them out of a different school. So I would say that, you know, as big of a deal as a crowded common area is, right now, my thought is switching kids to a new school is a bigger deal. But I do look forward to, I mean, I'm not in South, so I have no idea how the kids are managing and how, if it's a safe environment, and I would love to hear that stuff.
Well, and I'll work with Dr. Martin. I sat with Dr. Martin and Mr. Frederickson and went over these numbers, and they confirmed the numbers, seem to make sense on that. But like I said, there's no recommendation this evening. It's just this is what we see that happens. If you go large numbers, if you get into the 50, 60s, you move them out, you put them over at Aspen, I recreate an issue there as well. So, but let me work with Dr. Martin and her staff and the sheer number. And now they've had it for over a half a year. And they notice things that they can adjust to make it work better, and then see where we go from there.
So if the number of students is relatively the same next year, is there a point where if we get additional students going to Elementary South, that you would say we need to do something such as moving some students or something else? And what point would that be, do you think?
Well, I'd want to meet with Dr. Martin on that and kind of determine where we're at right now. 'Cause everything indicates pretty much flat at this point. We're growing, but it's just a matter of the in and out of some of the students.
So we know the 80% kindergarten registration. We don't know about the other classes. We're just assuming that the first grade is moving the second grade is moving, but they don't register until later, so we don't know exact numbers until when?
Yeah, a lot of times what happens after the first week of school, we find out who's moved. Before that, we know who moves in, so your enrollment artificially balloons a little bit, but then it shrinks after the first week of school, because then those folks that have moved that haven't told us, we get information from the schools where they've gone to. And that's where the 50 move-ins and the 23 move-outs incorporates all of that for the year at this point.
Move-ins between now and the beginning of year, they would normally register between now and then, right?
Right.
So we would have some sense of new move-ins between now and then?
Roughly, it's less than 1%.
Okay.
It's like been 6 kids, 5 kids.
And if that shoots up, then we can do
Right,
something.
yeah, right.
And this is also potentially, if all goes as planned, a one-year issue, because the following year we would be removing the kindergartners, 125 kids out,
Right.
which brings the whole population down to 520
Right.
some. So again, with Peter saying, is it worth moving kids for this
It's
one
like
year?
deja vu. I mean, we've been talking about this for 3 years, so I mean, don't say it's a one-year fix. I mean, it's been over and over and over again. I mean, it
As
is.
far as
We have a plan. So
Yeah,
yes, it
exactly.
is.
We've never had a Sullivan's.
So as far as one of the things Jason touched on a second ago, at the meeting on February 27th, I had mentioned that we used to do those paper or the flyers that would go home like in January or February, asking people, do you have a child that will be enrolled? But also, are you returning? And it might be a pretty good way to get an accurate assessment of who at least intends to return. It doesn't mean they won't move out, but most people at this point probably know if they have a good plan to move in the next 5 months. I know that we also talked about, probably over a year ago, potentially moving registration earlier on, so we could ascertain some of that better. Not sure what happened to that either. But as far as moving a neighborhood, it's not that I'm bothered by it the way Lou thinks I'm bothered by it. It's that I do think it is a temporary fix. I think that problem's going to continue to jump. And if we had a building that could absorb it, I would be more inclined. But what building do we have that can absorb it? I mean, Town Line's in just as bad a shape as Elementary South. And Aspen, last time I went and took a tour, didn't seem to have a lot of spare space. Elementary North might have a little bit now. Some grades of theirs are quite large, some are not. But if there's potential new development on Allenson, that would most likely go to North. So then you're looking at filling in some of that space. We have Cuneo on the north side. I mean, there's so many things coming that I just don't feel like moving a 20-person neighborhood is a fix. And I don't want to go moving larger populations when we don't know exactly what is on the horizon as far as getting permission to build more space, new developments still waiting to be approved. Like, there's just a lot of moving parts right now, and I think to go moving a neighborhood right now is sort of irresponsible.
Well, let me work with the principals to answer that specific question on the sheer number in the building, the flow, the traffic, all those pieces, and then what's the most. I know working with ASPO, we're trying to determine what's the most capacity it could take without recreating the same issue and causing it. So you have the numbers. We'll keep evaluating those, but we'll bring it back to you to answer those questions.
I had a question following up on Robin. The flyers that used to go home, I mean, just as a rough projection, as you said, people don't even bother telling us till they've gone for a week when you find out that they've left. Is there a reason why we decided not to do them? Where we used to get a commitment, like, are you coming back? Do you have a kindergartner who's coming, your sibling coming? And is there a reason we decided not to do those?
I'll have to go back and look into that and why. We may not have gotten good, accurate information. Some people fill it out, some don't. I mean, you send it out and you're getting 50% response and that's not accurate. I'll have to go back and answer that question why,
Our registration will open in April, will it? Like the online registration that used to.
Just like we normally.
Huh?
Yeah.
That'll open in April,
so.
right? So the fee, the fee thing is in, by August where you have to get your fees paid.
Right.
But April will be opening it up soon, right?
Yes, yes. Yes. Well, let me check on answer those for you too.
I had two things I wanted to propose. One, since it would require a policy change, from a practical standpoint, we wouldn't take any action on that until after a new board is seated, because it would take a little bit to draft the policy and then discuss it. But that would be for new developments, to identify them as going to a school where we have room, not necessarily within a boundary. Because when the reorganization was done, we filled out the entire district where the boundary lines are, but we didn't have an idea that some of these developments were going to occur. So we put in the policy that any new developments, maybe over a certain number of residences, would then be subject to whatever space is available until we get more capacity within our buildings. The second would be for the board, and this is something we could do right away, if the board was in agreement, that we take a more proactive approach with the villages that send students to our schools. So, for example, we receive students from Vernon Hills, Mundelein, and Libertyville. We monitor what's going on at the village level, and we go to those meetings and we comment not only what the impact is going to be on our schools, but also maybe trying to get a little bit more of an impact fee. I know some of the villages are pretty fixed in the amount they want to give us, but the amount that we get in new taxes only really covers the operating expenses for the additional children. It doesn't cover the fact that our buildings are full and that we need to add space to the building. So I think we can talk about that now and maybe take a more aggressive approach in letting the villages know, Mundelein, Libertyville, Vernon Hills, that, we have space issues and we're going to have to do something about it, and ask them for additional impact fees, and also tell them that new developments, we can't guarantee they're going to be going to a school, even if it's near the property boundaries for one of our existing schools. Any comments on that?
Well, I don't think you can guarantee anybody where they're going to go, being that the fact that the real population increase is happening in turnover. The new developments, they're going to maybe bring 100, a couple hundred, but I mean, the real issue is Deer Path, Hawthorn Club, Butterfield Apartments. I mean, we've seen that from last year, where the majority of the growth is happening. The real growth is happening in existing houses.
Right, but that will stop at some point.
Exactly, but I mean, what I'm saying is you can't have any, especially as we're moving forward with the plan and seeing what is happening. I mean, the boundary thing, until we really get to a capacity, has got to be nimble. I mean, it doesn't, you know, it has to be available that we can, that's our main job, is to where the students are going to go to school. And so we can't just be like, well, you don't want to move any boundaries at times as we're growing and thinking just going to happen on new development. We have to, it's a macro thing. So nobody should think that just because you're going to this school in the next 5 years, your house is going to be boundary to that school. We're going through dramatic, you know, changes in enrollment. So I don't think it's just safe to say that just because you're a new development, you might not go to the closest school. I mean, that's really district-wide until we see where the majority of the turnover is happening.
I think to say that's our main job is to take away from the fact that we're actually here for student achievement and not to go moving.
Come on. You know what I'm talking about. I mean,
Well, Lou, I
where
mean,
the
to say that
students
our
go to
job is to
school.
constantly be moving boundaries is,
No,
my
it's
gosh, that's such a
about
minuscule
making
part.
sure the schools are safe and
Right.
and a right place so your student achievement can occur. It's not about you know.
Agree,
scaring
but
them
there's
with
also an
boundaries.
impact on student achievement when you continually move families around and they're on different schedules and siblings get separated. And I mean, it's just the whole thing is you have to take that stuff into consideration.
Of course.
And it's not going to be, hey, you live in Deer Path. This year you're going to Aspen. Next year you're going to South. The year after that, it's
No,
going to be
you-
elementary north. Like, it's
No,
just, you
but-
can't do that.
Of course not. But that's why sometimes by not acting, we've acted. And so you have to be on top of those things.
Okay.
So, you know, it's kind of absurd that you're referring that I don't care about students.
I didn't say you didn't care.
Okay,
You
so
said our
let's-
main
let's
job
stay-
was to be nimble with boundaries.
Let's stay on
You
the
kinda
topic.
did.
Okay, well, I did not intend to put you in that category. I know you care about student achievement. I just don't want people to think that our main job is to populate the buildings correctly. It's not our main job.
I agree with your comment, Jeff.
I do too. I do think we should be
Getting
more
back
aggressive.
to what you said, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, then why don't we plan on doing that? We'll provide an alert when we're aware of a zoning or a new development issue, and then the board will participate in the village public hearing process.
Whose job will it be to keep our eyes on those things?
We'll do it. I mean, all of us actually, but we'll do it. We are in contact with the villages fairly regularly to try and make sure what's going on.
Okay.
We'll keep you posted if we hear potential or if there's hearings or things of that sort. We'll make sure we stay on top of it.
Other than the two properties that we know of, which is the Woodland Chase and Cuneo, is there anything else
Mallory
that
Farms.
Melody
Yeah.
Farms? That's true. I forgot about that. Anything else around in Libertyville, Mundelein, land available? Like not necessarily that it is in development, because I know Mundelein has two huge lots available, and they both fall in our district.
There's about 11 acres across from Greg's Landing that worries me. There's a house on it with 3 acres, and then 8 acres. Somebody could purchase that and do homes or do apartments or something, depending on how it's zoned. We don't really know of other like large pieces, but there are areas. I mean, it's very much like when we looked at an adaptive reuse for a warehouse. Somebody might find a apartment complex and turn it into condos. They might find a
There's 19 acres on Allenson
you know,
that's
it could be-
available for really cheap right now.
Somebody could pick it up
And that is our district
Yeah.
when I looked at
yeah,
it.
pick it up
So-
and build something. So we're constantly trying to watch.
But you haven't
And-
heard anything else, like from anywhere else? Like, that
Nothing-
was just Mundelein that I know of, the two, 19 and 11 acres.
Yeah,
But there's
nothing-
nothing in Libertyville that you've heard
No.
any rumors of or anything
Well,
as yet.
I hear rumors all the time, but nothing that's
Nothing's
yeah,
come in front of their
nothing
board.
worth
Yeah.
stating or it's too early on some situations, and sometimes you hear people think, oh, wouldn't it be cool if you turn this into they may just be thinking out loud and stuff. So we don't know yet.
Okay, anything else on that discussion item? Okay, next discussion item is, we had a school of dual language presentation, and we previously discussed expansion into the middle school. So at this time, what I'd like to do is have additional questions and comment, and then there's an action item if the board was inclined to vote on that expansion later on, at which time board members could have discussion and present their opinion as to whether they want to vote in favor or not. So at this time, are there any questions related to the presentation that we had, or?
Let me ask Art and Lisa to come up here
Okay.
to help. So Art and Lisa will sit up here in case there's some questions. We did get some very good questions. We sent out answers, tried to send as many answers as we can for you.
I guess it might be helpful, since this didn't come up at the last meeting, if we maybe go through the estimated costs of the program?
I sent the board a
Right.
memo
Right.
regarding those particular aspects. Are there specific questions that you want me to?
I think because it wasn't discussed in a public setting, it would be helpful to present that information, if you don't mind.
While he's doing that also, and just review that the information you've been provided is what we would call worst-case scenario costs. You know, it's going to take a few years for this to organically grow. Finding the staff, is one of the parents had shared, is a challenge. There are ways to do it, but you want to find the best staff with the ability to do that. And so we're showing you what it would look like, or what our hopes are it would look like after a 3-year growth period, you know, starting in the 6th and moving to 7th and 8th. And we'd have to adjust we'd look at our staffing each year as we grow. We'd also have to look at subject matter. If you're trying to find a science teacher and you can't find one, you know, then decisions are made. Is there another subject matter you use, or do you stay with just 2 and stay with literacy and the social studies until you find the appropriate person for that? We did share math was a little bit of a challenge, because in math it's just not one subject or multiple. So that presents a challenge to finding the appropriate staff for that sometimes. So from there, are you ready, Art?
In a second. Okay. I can't tell if you can see that. Let me see. Is that a better perspective? Yes. This is a memo that I submitted to Nick based on the questions that were presented to me on our last board meeting as far as the projected cost, and then trying to determine if any of those costs could fall under the current Title III budget. We took a look at curriculum development, which is one of the aspects that we wanted to discuss as far as developing units. And in order to be able to do that, be able to identify staff members to present that information and create those particular units. So I took a look at the number of substitutes required, the number of days, and the cost for each of those respective substitutes, and I came up with a total. And then I determined if that particular total could be covered under the grant. And I believe it can be. I've done that in the past, and monies have been allocated to those particular curricular development opportunities. The other question was, well, if we do it outside the school, summer curriculum development days, the cost of that particular aspect, and then typically curricular development is at $36 an hour. I estimated 18 hours for 9 staff members, and I had a particular cost that has been outlined, and if that particular item could be covered under the Title III budget, and it can be, because I've done that in the past also. So we've had staff members develop curricular units during the summer. We've paid them out of that particular grant to be able to do those things. As far as materials are concerned, you know, the curricular areas of Spanish literacy, social studies, and science, much of those materials can be covered under the curricular budget of the curriculum assessment and instructional budget. These are things that already, in some ways, have been purchased. I believe social studies has been purchased, or science has been purchased. And within my grant, I am able to support additional supplemental materials, and that's why I included additional supplemental materials for those particular areas. And so it's an opportunity for us to be able to support those teachers with additional materials, and that can be covered under the Title III grant.
And the curricular resources we look for right now, we look for both Spanish and English.
Yes.
In any of the resources we look at. So it's not an additional cost, that's just a criteria for when we look for materials.
Going forward, because we didn't, because we finished the 5th science this year, right? So this year also, when we bought the science curriculum, it is curriculum and, I mean, till 5th grade I can understand because we had the dual language. I'm talking about the 6th, 7th, 8th grade. We brought that in both the languages.
I don't bring in any materials unless they have a Spanish component. I haven't for a few years now.
Okay.
Any materials to even preview, because we have enough students at the middle school level, at all levels, that could benefit from that. So I always look for materials that come with other languages, particularly Spanish. We need to make sure that we have those available. Typically, the Spanish materials are in the digital form. They're not in the print. So they're supplemental in the fact that the teachers would go ahead and just print them out if they needed them. But that's definitely helpful resources, helpful resource for the ELL or bilingual teachers at any level. So that's, if we need the print materials, we'll use those if we have to. But we don't even look at things that don't have a Spanish component. Sometimes they're not, I'll be honest, sometimes they're not the highest quality. Sometimes they're direct translation and they're not necessarily supplemental text, which I know is more beneficial and helpful. But that being said, most textbook companies and publishers are designing materials for as many states as possible and as many sets of standards and regulations as possible. Not every state allows bilingual education. So you do limit the pool to some degree when you're looking for things like that. But we do look for those.
Because now that we build code to one-to-one, everything will be online anyway, right?
Yeah,
So-
and most of the materials, once you purchase something, for example, StudySync is a language arts resource that we have at 6 to 8. And the majority of the units when we purchased it 2 or 3 years ago were in English only. As of this week, I just heard they're starting to add more ELL and bilingual units. So those we're going to have training on at our Institute Day coming up in May. So most of the publishers that we go with that have something in Spanish to begin with keep adding those materials. And those are typically, multi-year subscriptions. It's not an annual thing. Usually you bundle it for 6 years. You get a portion of the time with print materials, and then you pay for the digital component for a certain number of years.
And within that process, we're always inviting our teachers to come and review the materials, to look at the quality of the materials that we're looking at, to look at actually at the Spanish materials themselves and the quality of language associated with them.
How much of a sure thing are these Title III funds given the state of our state?
I've been in bilingual education for over 20 years, and every year I've received a bilingual grant. There are some adjustments in as far as the allocation per student, but I've received those particular grants. I can talk to Brad.
We get the payments. They're somewhat delayed, just like all the payments from the state, but we do get them. They may be in the different fiscal year, but we have gotten all the payments.
But we're confident we'll get the dollars.
Right.
They haven't been prorating it either, like transportation. It's being funded at 100.
Okay, thanks.
Professional development, as we had outlined in the previous presentation, is an essential component. All professional development for students and for teachers can be covered under the Title III grant. So within this particular memo that I identified the level of professional development for our administrators, the school-wide approach. I even talked about, parents, bringing them into the fold. This past year, a couple of years, we've really been pushing the educational level with our parents as far as the importance of bilingual education. Just recently, we brought in a professional development person who's been working with the School of Dual Language for over the last 2 years to present to our parents about the importance of bilingualism. Brought that individual in to present to our community. So all of those things are able to be covered under the Title III grant. And I have done a number of different kind of professional developments, not only for the bilingual staff, but for our general education staff. My grant allows me to bring that ability to general education teachers also, if we have ELL students in their classrooms. And the majority of our classrooms, if not all, have ELL students within their classrooms. We were able to fund our very first year, the initiative to Harvard through this particular grant. We took a number of administrators to take a look at student achievement. I've brought in district-wide professional development in the area of sheltered language instruction for a number of our professionals. And we've been able to take a number of teachers to dual language professional development across the country. So those are things that I've been able to do, and have no doubt will be able to continue to do to prepare for this particular initiative. In many ways, we would build this initiative to sort of coalesce and to work together with the current dual language program and bilingual teachers, so we all work together in those particular areas. Assessment materials are things that I have purchased through the Title III grant. Those are things that are allocated and encouraged to be able to be purchased, and that would be covered under the Title III grant also. I took a look at the capital outlay and taking a look at some of the materials that can be purchased. I've outlined the cost for you, the estimated cost. Those currently are not covered under Title III. Those are things like furniture, desk and things. And then I've asked Brad to give me that estimate. He provided those cost estimates for us in the system. Staffing, we project in the first couple of years to take a look at an increase of 4.0 FTEs. I currently do allocate money for staffing within the Title III budget. My Title III budget allocation is for teacher assistants, and it's with salaries and benefits. It's over $300,000 that I currently budget within the Title III grant for those particular individuals. The estimated cost for an FTE is $60,000, and that's why we said increase of 4 would be $240,000. As we move forward with this in this particular program, the question has been asked, would these individuals be able to take other positions within the system? Those are things that we would evaluate on a yearly basis, as we do every year when we take a look at staffing. If in fact these individuals can meet the needs of ELL students at the middle school level, we would take a look at the allocation of ELL staff at the middle school level and determine balancing those particular aspects off. But as the board understands, we have a number of ELL students in our district, and so it would be hesitant for me to say that we're going to reduce that. We'd have to evaluate that on a yearly basis. We do that on a yearly basis. I give projections every year for every school based on our current level of ELL students, based on a projected also level of past, and I give an estimation on what service levels we would have. We would continue to do that as we move forward. This is sort of a breakdown of each of the respective years, some of the things that I've talked about. And then on the bottom here, I've also given you sort of the last 3 years where I have budgeted and purchased through the Title III grant a variety of different materials. You can see in some years, I may allocate more money for materials because we are doing some initial purchasing, and then I reallocate that to some other places. I have budgeted in certain years up to $57,000 for professional development for our staff across the district. I've purchased over the last 3 years, I'm gonna guess over $120,000 in iPads for our ELL community here. I see us as we move to the one-to-one, an ability for me to shift some more funds to take a look at supporting our staff. But that's done on a yearly basis based on the needs that we have. But based on the curricular development, the materials, professional development, the parent engagement, those are things that we can support as we move forward.
Could I ask a question about the staffing and what Title III will cover that way? In addition to the public comment that was made tonight, I remember at the last meeting you did mention that program of taking staff from Spain. What's the cost of visas, immigration attorneys, and is that covered by Title III? Like, where do we?
There's some money. I would have to work specifically with an individual with the ISBE to work those details out. So I'm hesitant to give you answers. I can give that to you within 24 hours or 48 hours. I can give you that information. It is my understanding that you recruit, you go, you interview individuals, you bring them back. Many of them, the Spanish consulate works tremendously well with the ISBE to bring the teachers here. So there has been a working relationship here. This is not a new program. When I was in District 112, we recruited teachers from Spain also as an initial thing. But I can get you that information.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
You do have a copy of the memo that I sent?
Yeah, we really appreciate
Thank you.
your
Yeah,
putting
that's
that
nice.
together for us with the costs.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion?
Yeah, I had a question. In your memo, you did say that, the staffing would fall on us because that's not covered by Title III grants and stuff. Realistically, looking at, there are quite a few, the new numbers that you've put for the IEP federal funds, which is, $27,000 or $20,000 for how much do you think we will actually get on it? Because we have to plan for it too, because, we have depleted our reserve pretty significantly for the kindergarten building, and the operational costs haven't hit us as yet. So I want to know, yes, it can be covered by a Title III grant, and I do understand that. But what is the number on a Title III grant? Do we get everything we ask for? If we ask for $500,000, are we going to get it?
It's an allocation per student that is identified within the school district. So it is based on an allocation of every ELL student that I have and I have identified within the school.
Okay, but then now School of Dual Language is not going to be ELL. These are not ELL students. So how are we shifting funds that were for ELL student marked for them?
The School of Dual Language falls under the umbrella of bilingual education. In fact, the ISBE is pushing more and more school districts to go to dual language programming. So those particular students, if they remain ELL, are counted, but I can use those funds for those particular programs.
Even if they are not ELL,
Yes.
we can use those funds. So we get it per student. So when we ask for them, we can ask for all the 225 kids that will be in dual language. We can ask them whatever $114
Those
that
are
we
still identified as ELL are accounted for within the grant. So
so we
I
can ask
believe
for
I
that
s-
much money.
It's allocated by the state. I don't ask for it. They allocate it to me.
Okay.
So I give them, that's why we are very vigilant with our ELL and bilingual staff to identify our students. So when a student walks into our school district, we provide, and if I have been identified as having a home language other than English, we screen those particular students. If that student is identified as an ELL student, I put that into PowerSchool, and on a weekly basis, that information is sent to the state. At every year, the state will account the number of students that I have that are identified as ELL and will allocate money for me to be able to support them
Okay.
as across the continuum of services.
So am I understanding you correctly if it sounds to me like if we get a fee per student for ELL and there's more ELL students out, that are not just the ones sitting in dual language, are we using fees that we're getting for them on the dual language students?
I'm allocating money across the entire district for a variety of different students. For example, the IEP grant is for newly arriving students. So monies that I allocate for those particular items, I identify newcomers, basically, to be able to support them. As far as the state is concerned, which is called the TBE TPI grant, we're identifying ELL students. I, as the director of the program, budget accordingly based on the needs that I see within the district. Sometimes I budget specifically for a particular school. Sometimes I budget for the entire system. In this particular district, what I have been doing is systemically taking a look at how we can support our students across the board. There are some monies that I have allocated specifically for the School of Dual Language because we have had some initiatives there, such as professional development. But I've also allocated in the past about $25,000 to $30,000 for professional development across the district for all of our ELL staff. So I manage the grant because it's allocated to me. I write up a grant indicating the budget detail items that I'm looking at. There is a grant manager at the state of Illinois that oversees me writing my grant and approves it or disapproves it or asks additional questions regarding my particular grant. So every school district has a grant manager that they oversee, and their job is to comb through my grant to make sure that it's aligned with what the goals are for each of the respective programs, that it's meeting the needs of the ELL staff, that it's meeting the needs of the ELL students, and it is approved by them in the end. And then we do I believe it's on a quarterly basis, we do expenditure reports. So everything that I spend, I need to justify, and I need to present back to the state, and they need to say, yes, you've done that. And then every 5 years, the state comes and they come back and they do an audit of all the things that I've spent. And they say, this is appropriate, not appropriate. So the last audit we had was about a year ago, and I think I was all good.
Okay.
So things that would take away, so then the stuff that would come from our finance would be the ongoing teacher salaries and the renovations and stuff which is not covered by Title III.
That's correct.
Is that the
Yes.
sum total of what we should be looking for?
Yes.
I do think, though, the renovations and the furniture would be a one-time expense initially and not a reoccurring expense. So the reoccurring expense would be the salaries, which would be around 300,000.
That's correct.
And I would say, in terms of professional development, the investment that we've made in PD for administrators and teachers in terms of ELL and bilingual in the last 3 to 5 years have been beneficial for all of our students. I mean, we've been looking at it, as you know, we've been looking at poverty, we've been looking at simultaneous bilingual students as opposed to, we talked about that before, how students are coming in different ways. Those discussions that we've started even through the audit with dual language have permeated throughout the district. The administrative team is looking at how we can utilize that information for all of our schools. So whatever investment that we're making in terms of professional development, we always have administrators and coaches participating in that PD so that we can bring the information back to all the schools that have students there who can benefit. So it is a good thing for us to keep investing in that.
It's just a
Any other questions?
quick comment question. So we're not teaching any more kids with the expansion of dual language in the middle school because those kids would be there regardless. But we are adding 4 new staff members. So the benefit there is not just to the dual language kids because now the other class, science class, would have fewer kids because we're separating these kids out. So there is a benefit to all kids in that sense by having smaller science classrooms and smaller social study classrooms.
And I would just also add, and again, then knowing both principals, we're also changing a culture. We're looking at really extending language within the middle school and the fact of being able to celebrate that particular aspect. And I know that they do that, but right now, it is a 40-minute advanced Spanish at the 6th grade level. We're looking to expand this particular program. And by expanding that particular program, I think that you're engaging many more parents in this particular aspect. I think it's an opportunity for us to really sort of coalesce and really solidify our programming across the district. And I think it has been a really good benefit for the entire district. The School of Dual Language and Dual Language Programming was the first initiative to support English language learners in this district as far as bilingual Spanish speakers were concerned. That initiative, with every time that you grow this particular program and every decision you make, has a ripple effect across the district. And I think I sort of outlined that for you in the sort of timeline that I gave you. With each of those respective decisions, it solidified sort of our commitment to bilingual education, which in many ways has solidified our programming in each of the respective buildings. And I've been here for 3 years, and I know that for a fact because I've seen it over the last 3 years. So, thank you.
I had a few questions. This puts, you've put in even the money for the PD for the administrators. I mean, they already have a lot on their plate. So between the assistant principal and principal, I'm assuming those will be the administrators at the middle schools, right? Have we asked them how do they feel about this additional PD and additional workload that they're going to get?
Thumbs up.
Okay.
3 or 4 thumbs up.
You think they're going to be like,
No, it is a lot of work, a lot more work.
The other thing I would say, regardless of whether or not, we always are talking about all of our programs. Our middle schools right now receive students from dual language program. So, we talk about it a lot in terms of what does dual language mean and what kind of benefit is that for our students. This would be more targeted professional development in terms of, how do you manage a program like that? How would you look at instructional strategies and those kinds of things? But again, it's beneficial and something that we already talk about as a team. What does that mean, to be in dual language and sharing instructional strategies? Because strategies that are good for those students are good for most students. And so some of that PD is already there. It's just a little bit more targeted, and how do we build a culture and how do we make sure that we're all, on the same page in the school. So
The other thing is the space issue, the big issue. I do understand that the kids are already there, but moving them out for, specifically for science or stuff, it reduces the class sizes. I do understand the middle school does offer flexible scheduling, but both our middle schools with the new current classroom of bubble 5th grade that is going in is going to be packed. They already are at capacity. By the time these kids start, some of the housing development which has been approved is going to go online. So we are going to get more kids and stuff into it. This either because we are going to pull out the dual language, which is going to be a fixed number of students, they will get pulled out to a smaller classroom. But isn't this a space constraint overall with all those kids there because it's not going to be equally distributed on there?
We continue to talk about this. I mean, we know that we have space issues coming up, and we know that there's a lot of things on the table with how we may or may not be able to address those space issues. But one thing that we've talked about is that, you know, some of this depends on the content and the staffing that is able to be done in terms of what courses we're able to develop and offer for the students. But we have currently existing classrooms that are available during prep periods. So if that were to happen and we weren't able to maybe refurbish a classroom or something like that, we've already talked about how we can schedule classes at different times to utilize the same facility. Does that make sense? So if we have a science class,
no, I understand
we
that.
can use the facilities more creatively. But there's a lot up in the air right now in terms of space. I mean, there definitely is. And so every time we talk about it, sort of like, how can we, you know, there's a lot of different ways we can address it, but until we start addressing it, it's hard to say exactly what that's going to look like.
Yeah, because, you know, if the referendum doesn't go through, there is not going to be any plan of, you know, adding space onto any of the middle schools, which is what they need, especially Middle North. It's tight on space in every single aspect that I looked from the EFMP. So adding more kids on there and especially pulling out kids, no matter how flexible you are, if they need space right now, that means they need more space. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't be the second largest, you know, on the budget item on the EFMP.
Again, it's hard to say, you know, because when you do pull students out of a general education program, yes, you're creating an additional space, but you're also creating seats within those classrooms. So as we get more students in, we should theoretically have more seats available within each of those classrooms, if that makes sense too. So it's hard to predict where and, you know, what grades you're going to get these students and when you're going to be getting them, especially before we look at the developments that are coming online, but just the turnover and things like that. Again, theoretically, you're taking spaces and putting them in a different space, and you're opening up seats in those classes too. So we know space is an issue.
I have similar concerns to Sonali because what I don't want to do is, you know, I think eventually if the referendum doesn't pass, we may find ourselves in a position of needing portables and whatnot. I just don't want to put us in that position any earlier than we have to be. Those things are not inexpensive. And although I don't personally have a problem with them or my child spending time in them, I know a huge portion of the community does. I just don't, it's not like I would shut the door on this discussion at a further point. I just, until the referendum is voted on, I almost feel like I can't make a totally informed decision right now because that would really impact my decision. So I do understand the concept that if you're shifting kids out of one class to go to a dual language science or social studies, that frees up seats in that science or social studies. But I just don't see there being enough extra space to make that worth the trade-off when I totally appreciate some of the amazing qualitative aspects of the dual language program, and I can totally understand why the parents are in love with it. It is, however, a very small population of our whole student body. And to pull resources from 95 or 90% of the kids to put onto 5 to 10% of the kids, I think we have to really question, is this exactly the direction we want to go with the limited financial resources we have and limited space resources we have? You know, I mean, people want to do STEM and they want to do this, they want to do that. That all costs money. I'm not sure where it's going to keep flowing in from, but
I think your comments should be part of a discussion if the board decides to proceed with an action item. I don't think it's appropriate to ask those questions or direct that discussion to the
I wasn't really even
presenters
meaning
here.
for them to respond to that per se. It was more of a
Right.
comment, but yeah.
I had a question regarding something else, was the one-way immersion program. The last time when we talked about it, you know, we said that if we did decide to expand, and we did, it would only be the dual language kids or somebody who came from outside and they had the dual language school somewhere else, and we would test them into it. But we in elementary not offer that one-way immersion program. And that one-way immersion program, as if I'm not mistaken, is making those kids bicultural, bilingual. And so why would we not offer that program to them just because they were in elementary north? But we offered them that one-way immersion program, and we didn't put them in the, the bilingual program where they become English proficient. So first of all, how do we decide who goes in a one-way immersion program versus the bilingual program? And then why would we not offer this opportunity if we decide to do it to these kids? And I don't know what their numbers are, because they should, that's why I'm asking.
It's a similar model for the program. I mean, the difference that I see in that is that the School of Dual Language is a choice for all of our students. And so when they enroll at Hawthorn, that's a choice for them to go into that program. The one-way immersion program at North developed because of the enrollment that was at the building, if that makes sense. So the students who were there and requiring services, there were enough at each grade to go ahead and mirror the program and do what we could to make it as close to a dual language program as possible. But that's one way, because we only have the one language in the classroom. We would love to be able to offer that opportunity to the students at Elementary North. But there's two different goals, for those programs right now.
Right. I think at the last presentation that I gave you, we talked about that particular aspect, and I've sat down with the building principals to take a look at the enrollment numbers of those particular programs, and as we go forward, we would love to be able to offer that opportunity. The first particular seats, for lack of a better word, would go to the School of Dual Language. But if we have a classroom that, for example, that is, I don't know, where you have maybe 19 and 20 kids in each of the respective classrooms, and you have some students that can be able to fit into there, we will do it. So that discussion is happening. I've had discussions with Robert. I've had discussions with Mr. Natal regarding that particular aspect. We've identified the children all the way from kindergarten, from the elementary north, and which respective schools they go to. So yes, we would like to be able, but we're also very cautious about space. And so.
No, but here's the thing I
Right.
didn't understand is we decided to implement this program of a one-way immersion for these kids and not put them in a bilingual where they become English proficient and they move out of that, right? That is the other way the programs work, right? And you're bilingual in, like, say, Townline or Aspen or stuff. We give them support and they become English proficient, and they don't need support anymore.
The goal of all of our programs is for our students to become English proficient. The additional goals for our one-way program and our dual language program is for them to maintain their native language and to be able to do that. So all of our goals for all of our students under the umbrella of bilingual education or ELL education is English proficiency.
So do they get a choice when they're in elementary north whether they want to be in one-way immersion, or do they want to
We
be
offer
in?
that program to everyone. Every child who is an ELL student has the choice to serve, to be in the program. So if, in fact, a student is in, for lack of a better, an English language learner and is not of a language that has 20 or more students and is receiving typical ESL support, we offer that program as a choice for those parents. Parents can decline that choice.
Okay.
Oh, yes. So all parents receive the choice of a particular program. We encourage many of our students at Elementary North who are Spanish speaking in beginning in kindergarten to offer this program with them because it is all encompassing. We have a classroom teacher, we have an ELL teacher within that same area. Some parents have selected to do that, some parents have not. It's a choice for the parents.
Okay, so the one-way immersion is also a choice for the parents.
Every program in the district is a choice.
No,
Because
bilingual and ESL is not a choice, right? I mean,
It
if
is
they
a
need,
choice. Parents can decline services.
they can.
Yes, absolutely.
And what I meant was that the students who are choosing to go into the School of Dual Language are making a choice of a program and an actual different building than their neighborhood school.
Are there any questions remaining that board members have in order to make an informed decision at a later time?
You know, I remember getting information about just dual language immersion programs in general, and it was how the students benefit when the program ends in 5th grade versus how they benefit when the program ends in 8th grade. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. I don't have the graphic with me, but it's a classic graph that indicates sort of the projection of students' performance in each of the various ELL or bilingual programs. And dual language has research that clearly indicates that the longer the students are in the program, their projections are higher. And so their achievement is higher. We see benefits right now for our students in the dual language program as they go through the system. That within middle school, we see them sort of closing that particular gap in those particular tests. We anticipate, based on the research, that those gaps will be closed even further because we are supporting their students not only cognitively and academically, but also emotionally. That's a very vulnerable time for kids, and the ability to have our students who are bilingual, ELL students, be able to continue to have communication with their parents. Those of you who have teenagers, I have too. It's essential to be able to communicate, and many of our parents still speak Spanish, and so we want to be able to have our students be able to communicate with their parents in that particular way. So there are cognitive benefits for our particular students. There are emotional benefits for our students. There's community benefits. The fact that they see that a school district is embracing who they are and what they are. And as you well know, this is a very vulnerable demographic, and anything that we can do in order to sort of support them in their academic progress, I think is essential. And I see the dual language as that. I've spent the last, I don't know, 10 days as being the principal of the school. It's amazing. It's an amazing program. And I have been a principal of a dual language school for 7 or 8 years. And it's been great to be back in that environment, to see sort of the friendships that occur within the school that you typically would not see. We had an event on Friday night, a multicultural night. It was fantastic. We had all the different types of parents, different kinds of families together in one building, being a school. And they were a school. It was great.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question. For the park testing, I mean, I understand all the social emotional help that we can give the kids, the support we can give the parents and the kids. Eventually, it does come down to performance at certain points because we get dinged on that by other places. I had asked for comparisons between other schools and our school of dual language for.
Did you receive it?
Yeah, we did. So I know Woodstock kind of, and I do understand all the, the percent of Hispanic, percent of sort of low income, and as close as we can come to kind of comparing them. I know Woodstock and us match pretty closely in our achievement, but I'd like to know how come Schaumburg is doing, and they are pretty closely matched to a lot of our schools, are doing so much better, and why, where is our gap in that, in achieving that?
Can you give me an idea of where you're going with the comparison on Schaumburg?
Are
Are you going with percent low income, percent Hispanic?
Yeah, the person
Both
low
of
income,
those.
person Hispanic, they're pretty close to what we are. They won't be exactly at 52% that we have, but their percent ready for next level park is much higher than ours. So I want to know, because that is a gap that we have, and we need to, now we are going to get into 6th, 7th, 8th, and as my concern always has been, 6th, 7th, 8th is a stepping stone to high school, and academics start mattering a lot more. You have to get them ready for that academic level now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I want to know why,
So in the comparison, that's why we included a lot of different factors. The grade span served. So Schaumburg goes up to 6th grade. It is a strand within the school. So the park scores don't necessarily reflect just the students of dual language in that school. So there's just one classroom per grade of dual language students in those schools, 1 to 2. That's not comparable in terms of a full school where all the classrooms are dual language. So we wanted to try to give you as much information as we could in terms of comparing, but that piece about whether or not it's a strand or a full school is kind of important, because it's the park scores that are reflected here are for the full school, the composite of all the grades for ELA and math. The percent low income, is either 28 or 41% as opposed to 52. Whether or not 11 points difference or 11 percentage points difference makes up for, the park performance that you're seeing in terms of a difference. It's hard to say. And instructionally speaking, I haven't been to the school, so I'm not exactly sure how they're structuring it. The park scores are public, obviously, so that we can compare and look at ourselves in comparison to other schools. Obviously, there is a lot of other assessment that all districts do to evaluate their programming. I wouldn't be comfortable presenting another district's local assessment data, just as I wouldn't share our data to be presented to another Board of Education either. But the only thing that I can offer on the park assessment is just that. It's one snapshot. We're looking at a composite for the whole school where the model is a little bit different. It's not a full school model. And the demographics are slightly off. So it would be hard for me to explain why exactly there's a difference, but some of that may account for that.
And the other question I had was, which helped me in understanding in the curriculum, dual language, the bilingual, bicultural, and a two-way immersion program. If I look at their scores eventually as compared to Elementary North, which is a traditional school, and we are just supporting that population through either bilingual classes or ESL, their scores are pretty tight to each other. So I am not seeing the benefit. I mean, you have to explain to me like the benefit that you're seeing in that, because if I start going towards the scores, whether they are in the elementary level or they land up going to Middle North and we pull them out or pull them apart, they all land up, Elementary North and dual language with the % of Hispanic population, % of low income, they land up being pretty tight to each other. So I want to see the advantage of dual language that is, that is being given for having a specific curriculum, specific instructions, which is different that.
The added value for the dual language program is that all students within that school are gaining language. Every student is a language learner, a second language learner in that school. And so the added value is that, yes, it's a very strong intervention for our TBE students. For our students who are monolingual English or speak another language coming into the School of Dual Language, they are going to end up also bilingual or trilingual, depending on how they enter the school. Elementary North and dual language have similar and significant low-income populations. They have similar and significant populations of Hispanic students that are different than other schools in the district. We work closely with both of those schools. They both receive Title I funds. They both have adjusted their parent programming. I mean, a lot of the initiatives that we've been working on for the past 3 years have been designed specifically to address the achievement gap that we're seeing. But when we talk about added value, I think that's what we've heard from our parents. The added value is the value of bilingualism, biliteracy, and biculturalism that happens within the school, and not just the academics and curriculum, but also, as Art was talking about, the relationships and friendships and community that comes out of that. So that all continues to be facilitated at Elementary North too. It's just that dual language is the entire school. That's the entire population of the school that gets to have that exposure. So, I think this board has always been very cognizant of the fact that 1 or 2 assessments does not give us the entire picture. And I've always tried to present data in that way. I mean, when we talk about assessments with our students, we talk about a photo album, not a snapshot. Within a photo album, we're talking about multiple different measures. And some address specific academic goals. Some address proficiency, some address growth. We're looking at ways to whether or not to measure how students feel about being at school, whether or not they're safe. We look at 5 essentials. We look at, the culture of our school in terms of staff. We look at writing assessments. We're looking at whether or not a student is proficient with technology skills and 21st century learning goals. And there's a lot that we're looking for to try and make sure that our students are receiving a well-rounded education. Dual language is special in that they have that added goal of biliteracy, bilingualism, bicultural. That's different than we offer at the other schools, and that is added value for the parents who choose to be there. So I don't want to make it, more than that, but I don't want to make it less than that either.
You know, I think some of the other things that we are doing as a district that sort of aligns with the strategic plan, and some of it was presented today, the Educational Foundation, the development of that particular program to be able to support our teachers across the board with initiatives, I think is essential. The fact that we understand, based on our research and our visit to Harvard University, that, typically students who are newly born and 1 or 2 years old, depending if you're in a low-income home or non-low income, look pretty much the same, is when they arrive to kindergarten, is when all the differences are sort of there. And many ways, schools are striving to close that gap that occurred in those early years. We as a district have recognized that, and we've assigned one of our principals to develop a NEST program to take a look at those particular students. So I see this sort of as not as an isolated thing, but as a sort of how are we going to embrace this particular community that is struggling, and it's struggling not only here but across the nation. We have decided, in many ways, to make a commitment toward that, and commitment again. We believe in those things, and we're committing ourselves to be able to do that through the Educational Foundation, through NEST, through the discussion of this particular program, to the fact of looking at elementary north and continuing that one-way immersion program. Those are all commitments that we have for a particular demographic that we see struggling at times. We have seen growth too. We have seen that growth within the middle school. What we want to be able to do with a particular segment of our population is to be able to sort of accelerate that growth. We see kids moving away from that lower 21st percentile as they enter middle school. My concern is that we don't have enough kids who are Hispanic and low income at the 80th percentile. That's my goal. That's what I want to see, because that's where we need to go, and that's what we need to believe in. And I have committed my entire life to be able to do that. I am a student of, and a child of parents who came to this country for a better life, like many of you I have. And it's something that it can be attained, and we, I think, as a district, are trying to commit ourselves to that. So I don't see this particular program in isolation. I see this as sort of encompassing how we're going to support a particular community, meaning low-income students within our district.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for answering the questions. Okay, at this time, next discussion item, we have an update on the consultant that was retained to help with putting together information related to the referendum.
Yes, in your packet, you have copies of our communication plan for this week. In 2 days, I'll have another one for the following week, including how we'll communicate out to inform folks via Facebook and Twitter, or online via emails, and working with some partners like the village and the library. So this spells out types of messages. There have been a few corrections in a few of the messages with phone numbers, things of that sort, but this is the communication plan for this week. And like I said, next day or two, I'll have the one for next week as well. Trying to saturate out to as many people as we can to inform them of the superintendent's coffees. There's one on Saturday, the 18th, and there's one on Monday, the 20th, trying to share information to people about the long-range educational facilities master plan and our projected growth and what our needs are. So we are working diligently to try to get that out. And also gives us information on how many people are following us on certain Facebook channels, things of that sort.
Are there any questions?
People can, you could email me if you had a question, if you hadn't had a chance to really digest it, you could.
So, we are going to, this shows that, the recommendations that we're doing, and then we have the 2 copies that we have, right, to meet you and for information. Is that about the last of the things that we are doing? Is like, other than, do we have anything else set up? Are we going to hold something more in schools to kind of?
I'm waiting to hear back from a couple other organizations for me to come and speak to their groups and share with them. I've done 4. Last week I got the 2 coming up this weekend on Monday. Just trying to organize those with other folks. Then this is sort of the digital plan. So if you can't you can't see me or I can't get to you, or your organization doesn't meet until after, this is how we'll be sending out the information. And many folks are willing to take this and then spread it out. It's just informational, to give them the information on either when there's a meeting with me or where there's information about the educational facilities master plan and the referendum question. So it is informational, so it's just trying to get it out there as best we can. But I have 2 other organizations I'm waiting to hear back from to go and make presentations.
Any other questions?
Are we doing any mailers? Or-
Yes, yes. Will be coming out shortly.
Yeah. No, because, for people who do not come to the, like the senior center thing that you went to, but there is a whole population who's not,
Connected.
attached to the school, but we need to
Mailers,
inform them too.
yeah,
So I was just wondering how we would.
We have a physical mailer to go out. We have what I'd call, these are almost like digital mailers. And then we're connecting again with the Park District, the Village, other organizations that have their own sort of listservs, and they'll send it out. So we really want to make sure that when folks go on April 4th, they're informed and can make an informed decision. So we're trying to get that out to them. But yes, there is a
I know
mailer.
we're doing with the Village and the Park District. Do we do the high school? Because, people might
Yes.
have kids in high school who not.
Waiting to hear back from the high school on that. We sent them some information and they're discussing that. Mhm. Sending stuff out to the local daycares and preschools and things, putting the flyers out there for folks that don't have children with us yet but are interested in knowing.
What about the library?
Library's putting information out for us as well.
And I'm always a fan of the robocall, and I know there's split groups on this, but I feel like it's kind of a big deal for people to know about.
Yeah,
so.
we'll do the robocall
Okay.
to remind them of this, and the Remind app goes
to
out
get
just
information, so people know where to get information.
Some of it is just reminding them where to go. So you get a Remind app last week, and I didn't think about it, and this week we'll send another one. Oh, okay, I'll go to the webpage, find it out. Okay.
Okay. That brings to conclusion the committee of the whole. We'll move into the board business meeting. At this time, I noticed there's still a fair number of people here. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to comment? Is this any thing that you've already commented to the board? Okay, it needs to be, you've commented a couple times on the dual language, so it needs to be something different.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm Betsy Sostak. I live at 1320 Hampton Lane. Just 2 comments I wanted to make. The first is that we are not 5% of the population. If you count kindergarten through 8th grade and all the students that have been affected by the dual language program, that's currently 675 students in the district that are being affected by the dual language program. We are 1/5 of the elementary schools. We are not a strand within the school. We are not a program within a school. We are an elementary school in the district. So 675 students being affected by your choices in a middle school program. And that's not including students who would be coming out of the one-way immersion programs at Elementary North or newcomers coming in. So something to consider. The only other thing I wanted to say is that in regards to postponing and a possibility of postponing a vote tonight, the 2007 is the first year that we had students go to a middle school that came out of the dual language program. To put that in perspective, that's the year that my son was born, who is now in danger of not having a middle school program in the next couple of years now. There have been various reasons why this has been postponed. New schools, new reconfigurations, the whole reconfiguration plan, now a referendum. This is one of the reasons that as parents, we wanted to come forward early in the year and say that as part of the referendum, we wanted to be considered in this as one of the elementary schools, as someone who wanted their voices heard, that this is something that's a priority for us and hopefully as a district as well. So we do ask that this would be something that is incorporated into your plans as we move forward and hopefully voted on. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wants to comment? Okay, we have a consent agenda tonight consisting of the board minutes from February 27th, closed session minutes from February 27th, a periodic review of closed session minutes and recommendations from board council, an Amex report, an expenditure report, and a personnel report consisting of some resignations, retirements, and leave of absence. Is there any discussion? I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Is there a second?
I second.
Motion by Jeannie, second by Robin. Since it contains an expenditure report, can I have a roll call vote?
Jeff Bard.
Aye.
Gita Mueller.
Aye.
Lou Gata.
Aye.
Robin Cleek. Aye. Sonali Patil.
Aye.
Jeannie Engelmeyer. Aye. Jason Tron.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 7 ayes, 0 nay. We have an action item for the first student renewal for the 2017-2018 school year, which was discussed at the last meeting. Can we just have a brief summary?
Sure. We're recommending renewal of our contract with First Student for activity and summer school transportation and charter service. We can extend our contract for this year. The proposal is 4% increase for summer school routes and a 3% increase in charter and activity routes. We spend about $97,000 per year on busing with First Student, so this equates to about $3,000 in additional expenses. This addresses additional salary increases as they're trying to bump up put this into the salaries to hopefully maintain drivers, as well as healthcare and costs associated with the Affordable Care Act on top of the Consumer Price Index. Again, I went out to Lakeside and asked for a similar quote, and it came in about 47% higher than our rates for First Student. So I recommend we extend our yearly agreement with First Student.
Okay, any questions or discussion? Do you have any questions or discussion on this item?
No.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the renewal of First Student activity and summer school transportation for the 2017-2018 school year as presented. Second.
Motion by Robin, second by Jeannie. Since it contains an expenditure of district funds, roll call vote.
Sonali Patil.
Aye.
Jeannie Engelmeyer.
Aye.
Jason Tron.
Aye.
Robin Cleek. Aye. Lou Gata.
Aye.
Gita Mueller.
Aye.
Jeff Bard.
Aye. Motion passes 7 ayes, 0 nay. We had an action item concerning the School of Dual Language Middle School expansion. Any discussion? Do board members want to vote on this
Yes.
tonight?
Yes.
Okay, is there a
Not
motion?
particularly, but I'm not in consensus with
Is there
anybody.
a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the expansion of the dual language program to the middle school level, beginning with sixth grade and rolling up a grade level each year thereafter, beginning in the 2018 to 2019 school year.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
Motion by Jeannie, second by Gita. Any discussion or comments? Okay, roll call vote.
Gita Mueller.
Aye.
Jeannie Engelmeyer. Aye. Lou Gata.
Aye.
Jason Tron.
Aye.
Sonali Patil.
Nay.
Jeff Bard.
Aye.
Robin Cleek. Nay.
Okay, motion passes. 5 ayes, 2 nay. Okay, we had a action item concerning administrator contract renewal. Is there a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the administrator contract renewal as presented for the personnel report.
Is there a second? Who seconded
Jeannie
it?
said second.
Okay, motion by Sonali, second by Jeannie. Discussion? Okay, roll call vote.
Jeff Bard.
Aye.
Gita Mueller.
Aye.
Lou Gata.
Aye.
Robin Cleek. Aye. Sonali Patil.
Aye.
Jeannie Engelmeyer. Aye. Jason Tron.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 7 ayes, 0 nay. We had an action item concerning superintendent contract extension.
Jeff, can we move into closed session first before we?
Okay,
Discuss
there's a
it with them.
request to move into closed session. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Jason Tron.
Aye.
Jeannie Engelmeyer. Nay. Sonali Patil.
Aye.
Robin Cleek. Aye. Lou Gata.
Aye.
Gita Mueller.
Nay.
Jeff Bard.
Aye. Okay, motion passes 5 ayes, 2 nays. We'll adjourn into closed session. Hopefully not too long, but I anticipate perhaps up to between 15 and a half hour. And then we'll reconvene back in the open session.
I don't even know if I my kid
Does
somewhere.
Nick know that we're back?
He should. He'll be there.
Yeah, he might not want to miss this.
Yeah, on third, I can come. Varsity is behind, so I can find somebody. To find somebody to.
Okay, the board is back in open session at 9:31 PM. Do I have a motion?
Just the regular motion from here. I move that the Board of Education approve the administrative contract renewal.
Yes, we did that.
Did that one.
Oh, sorry. I move that the Board of Education approve the superintendent contract extension through June 30th, 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Jeannie, second by Jason. Any discussion or comment?
I would like to extend the contract for 1 year.
Are you making an amendment?
Sure, I move that the Board of Education approve this. No,
You want to amend the motion?
I want to amend the motion. And then, do I state the motion?
Amend it, amend the 2 years, amend the end date to be a different end date.
Okay, I want to amend the motion and amend the end date to June 30th, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Sonali, second by Robin. Any discussion? Okay, we'll vote on the amendment first. Roll call vote.
Sonali Patil.
Aye.
Lou Gata.
Aye.
Gita Mueller.
Nay.
Jeff Bard.
Nay.
Jeannie Engelkmeyer.
Nay.
Jason Tron.
Nay.
Robin Cleek. Nay.
Okay, motion fails.
Amendment.
3 ayes.
Amendment.
Amendment
Amended
fails,
motion
3 ayes, 4 nay. Now we'll vote on the original motion. Roll call vote.
Wait, there was,
2-5.
It was two.
Do we have to reread it?
Oh, I thought I heard 3.
Robin was a nay.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, vote on the original motion.
Jason Tron.
Aye.
Jeannie Engelkmeyer.
Aye.
Sonali Patil.
Nay.
Robin Cleek. Nay. Lou Gata.
Aye.
Gita Mueller.
Aye.
Jeff Bard.
Aye. Okay, motion passes 5 ayes, 2 nay. Okay.
All right.
So, congratulations.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
President's report, couple of items. The first is there is an election on April 4th, and there are 3 board seats up for election. So I want to encourage everybody to go out and vote. I want to make a couple of comments on the referendum. The school board does not participate in taking a position on the referendum other than we decided to put the question on the ballot, but we're not allowed to campaign as a board one way or the other, only to provide factual information. So I want to make that clear to people who are wondering why we are not doing that. We're prohibited from doing that, but we do want to put the factual information out there. That's the reason why there's a number of activities in town, meeting with various organizations, just to try to get the information out there. We talked earlier about the Twitter and Facebook and sending information home. It is a $42 million referendum. We've put out some materials related to what that impact would be on home values, what the plan would be in terms of implementing the educational facilities master plan. We did have the core team work a lot of hours putting that together, and we did decide on those things that were necessary for the district. We've been talking meeting after meeting for a year and a half at least related to the capacity issues in our schools and what that means to our learning. So people need to vote, and I encourage everybody to vote. I think that's about it. Anybody else have anything they want to say related
Can
to
I
that?
add on to what you're saying about
Sure.
the vote?
Yeah.
Again, these local elections and all of them, and all of the different, municipalities, they're, I'm always thinking back, you were trying to get turnout. If you get 10%, it would be a great turnout. With the referendum and some others, maybe it'll be more. But as everybody's worried about Hillary's email and Trump's mouth, in these little elections, you're voting on 90% of your property taxes. So,
70%.
No, not just the schools, in general.
Oh,
Parks,
I thought you meant
library,
just the school.
village,
Sorry, yes.
schools. So this is the elections that matter.
True.
Right, and we do only receive between 8 and 12%, I would say, turnout, which is pretty sad.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you're worried about the other stuff.
And the other thing is some school districts or school boards will put out there what will happen if the referendum doesn't pass. And, it's almost like a scare tactics. But for the people who have kids in the district, you see day to day the impact that having our buildings full creates on our learning environment and space within the building. So, I mean, that's just a fact. Okay, also, there was an Illinois Association of School Boards meeting last week. I want to congratulate the 5 of the candidates that are running for a school board seat. They went to the dinner. There was like an orientation for potential school board members. There was a presentation on the art of school boarding, some really good suggestions. I'd like to send a copy of the presentation to the rest of the board, but I was unable to access it through the IASB website, but we'll get it and we'll send it to you because there was some really good information with that. I also want to present to Gita a certificate of recognition from the IASB for being a delegate at the delegate assembly in the conference last fall.
Thank you. Ooh, Gita, fancy.
Also, I want to mention the candidate forum at 7 p.m. tomorrow for school board candidates that are running for election. That's at Middle South. It is not a district or board sponsored event, but it is sponsored by the Hawthorn Education Association. It's a good opportunity to hear the candidates and their views so that people can make an informed decision on school board candidates running for election. So I encourage everybody to go to that tomorrow night at Hawthorn Middle South at 7 p.m.
All right. Real quick, we had some exciting activities this weekend. Starting on Friday, I was over at the School of Dual Language for their program. It was very exciting to see. A lot of folks there having fun singing and dancing and enjoying that. We also, the past weekend, we had the Hawthorn schools hosted the 2017 Northern Illinois Music Conference Organization Music Contest. And we did this last year as well, if I recall. Over the course of the 2 days, Hawthorn hosted 30 ensembles from schools in our area, Arlington Heights, Spring Grove, Buffalo Grove, Vernon Hills, Gurnee, including audience members that would be approximately 2,000 people. The contest took place at Elementary North and Middle North and at Town Line. Each ensemble performed, was graded, and received a clinic from 3 judges. The music conference, leadership, judges, and visiting directors were all very complimentary of how Hawthorn hosted and said that we should host every year. When you have 2,000 folks coming, they want you to come to their house. But really, I would compliment Rob and Robert. Your staff did a great job. Got to go over there and hear some. If you didn't get a chance, if we do host again next year, I'd recommend popping there because it's just amazing the talent and just the sheer talent they have and how our staff pulls it out of our students even more than others. But it was very exciting to see and would encourage folks to try to attend that.
You can watch on YouTube.
Pardon me?
You can watch on YouTube. I watched on YouTube.
Oh, very good.
And
Yeah.
on Facebook.
Very good. Yeah, I know. I think, Robert, you sent some YouTube pieces too. Yeah, very good. Activity highlights, 3/14/15, Middle North, Middle South, Little People Band Festival, North Chicago High School. Daytime field trip, 3/16, 6th Annual Hawthorn Art Show, open reception, Aspen Drive, Library, 6 to 8 p.m. 3/19, PTO Variety Show, Middle School South, 1 to 3 p.m. 320, second trimester report cards distributed. 321, Middle North, Middle South sixth grade Choral Fest at Vandercook College of Music, daytime field trip. 321, Middle North, Middle South sixth grade chamber and symphony orchestra concert, Middle North, 7 p.m. 327, park testing window opens, grades 3 through 8. 327 through 331, spring break, if it doesn't snow on us. 4-6, bilingual ELL parent education event, themed school registration at Middle School South, 6:15. BPAC meeting at 7. 7, April 7th is Elementary South Family Night Dance, 6 to 7:30 p.m. On 3:15, we do have a special education informational parent meeting, district office in the boardroom here at 7 p.m. Encourage everybody to come to those. Also, don't forget on the Saturday, 3/18, I'll be providing information to folks that want to learn more about the Long Range Facility Master Plan and the question on the referendum, and also on the 20th, doing the same thing. And all that information is out there. Please come listen and visit, and I hope everybody gets the information they need.
On Saturday, it's at the library,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And on the 20th, it's at the
Sullivan Center.
at the Sullivan Center.
Yes, and at 9 in the morning on Saturday, about around 11, and then the Sullivan Center, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 6.
Okay, any committee reports?
30.
No, next time.
No, okay, and any future topics?
If the director of communication position,
We're going through the applications now. We have some very good applications. We just have not finalized the interview process yet.
okay, what if we wanted to amend that to a different type of position?
And
Could that be brought up again, or there has to be board
I'm-
consensus to bring it up again, or?
Well, the position was approved and you're interviewing,
I mean,
but,
we haven't started the process. We're going through, so
Okay.
we need consensus. But if there's a suggestion of what you're looking at,
I think I just like, as I sat and thought about it more, was wondering why it's at a director level. I'm not sure that was clear to me at the time. I thought at the time the debate was more full-time, part-time, and now I'm going, why is it director level? That seems overkill for what's
maybe,
required.
if you want to take that up after the meeting or
let me
another.
send out. I'll take that as like a question sent to me, then I'll send out an answer back to the board.
Okay.
on that.
I mean, if it's already been decided and there's no consensus,
Yeah, we did
I
take
can leave
action
it.
on that already.
No, I know we took action. I'm just saying if there's no consensus to like,
Reopen.
consider that as
Okay.
something less
Does
than a director
anybody want to
position.
discuss that at another meeting? No. Okay. Any other future topics that aren't already scheduled? Okay. This is the last meeting before spring break, so I wish everybody a happy spring break if I don't see you before then. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Motion by Jeannie, is there a second?
A second.
Second by Robin, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, meeting's over.
Meeting's over.